Let's go, girls. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I'm Michelle Taylor, founder of Women in Wealth. From breaking money myths to building wealth and achieving financial freedom, we're here to empower you to create your own path. Talk Wealthy. Now, join the conversation and let's change the way women think and feel about money. Okay, ready? Hey, everybody. Today's Wednesday, right? Crazy season, lots going on, but I'm super excited to have you all here with me at the Talk Wealthy to Me podcast. I wanted to tell you about my amazing guest on the podcast today, Susan Southerland. You guys are in for a treat. She is just a badass. She runs Just Events, Just Marry, and then Just Destinations. So she's got 3 companies. She's in business with her husband, which is also an amazing feat. I give them all the credit in the world. They definitely are, as she puts it, the balloon to the string. And absolutely have just been so inspiring. And Susan and I actually work together on the consulting side of my business. And she and I have had a great relationship over the past few years. And she's a great storyteller. So I think you guys are in for a treat. She has a way of making everything that she is doing look incredibly easy and makes you feel like you've been her friend for years. I love Susan, and I know that you will too. She is a force, and let's get right to it. Susan, it's so great to have you on the show. I'm really excited that you get to sit down with me. Welcome to the Talk Wealthy with Me podcast. And I'm super excited to hear all of the great things that you have to share with us today.
Well, I'm excited too. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to just start out by telling us about what you do and what you've built.
What I do and what I've built. Okay. So, gosh, it's been almost 34 years ago. I started a little wedding planning company. I had been working at another business that worked in tourism, and I was not terribly excited with what I saw the journey ahead to be. So I decided to start off on my own. And what started as a simple business in the bedroom of my parents' house has grown and grown and grown. And now we do social events, we do corporate destination management worldwide, and it's been quite a ride.
And did you ever expect to have a company this big?
No.
Or multiple companies?
And I think that's so funny because people ask me that, and I had absolutely no inkling of where it would go and how it would grow. And it's just seeing opportunities and trying to be innovative and do new things allowed me to grow beyond my wildest expectations.
And I'm assuming, and obviously I know you pretty well, but I think that very typical to the entrepreneurial journey, you've kind of learned as you've gone and jumped in with both feet, and you work with your husband.
Yes.
So that's also an exciting dynamic.
It is fun. You know, we try to stay out of each other's lanes. We go to each other for advice, and we definitely each have our strengths and we each have our weaknesses, and we try not to step on each other's strengths, and we try to bolster each other's weaknesses.
I love that. I think that if I worked with Jason, it would be tricky. We are just so different. And I think all the time how amazing it is for couples that can find that right balance. So Scott's great. I give you guys a lot of credit for making it work and building this great vision. So the point of this show that I think is so important is really getting to going to the beginning of your story and figuring out, there's a lot of noise nowadays with what success is supposed to look like. And if you don't achieve that picture perfect, Instagrammable success, then you haven't hustled hard enough. And I think that that's such a missing piece of the conversation. And what I love so much is as women, we are very resourceful and creative and really we can define what success looks like to us and build it on the way up, right? So tell me a little bit about the girl,
Hmm.
Susan, young girl.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment that you saw someone doing something that you thought they've got it all figured out? I want to emulate that, or I want them to mentor me,
Hmm.
that you can credit kind of as getting you on this path of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that that's your take on things because I grew up, or, I started my company at a time where all the .com stuff was happening and
Oh,
people were
yeah.
being measured in billions, and so it was that was like the measure of success. How many billions can you create and make, and how huge is the company? But to me, starting as the little girl, I knew I wanted to have a family. I wanted children. That was never a question in my mind. And what I saw as I was going through college and starting to do internships and doing things is that success was being measured by, again, the money you were putting in your
Mhm.
bank account, how many hours you could struggle and work and burnout and exhaustion. Success to me was making a career where I could have children and be with them at their soccer games and at their plays and at their recitals and spend holidays with them. And it's also an atmosphere I wanted to make for other people. So I
Oh,
knew
I
when
love
I was
that.
going to have employees, I wanted to make sure they had the opportunity. And that's like our number one rule is family first. If you have a play to go to, if you have a sporting event, if you have one of my employees has a nursery schooler and she has
Oh,
never missed story time and she goes to all their holiday things. That to me, like obviously you have to make a living,
sure.
but to me, the freedom to be able to be with your family and grow with your family, that was that was what I wanted.
And did you have an example of that? Was there a woman in your life growing up that you saw, or a man
Yep.
that you saw and said, "Oh, they're doing it right, and that's what I want"?
Actually, no. Everything around me I saw was burnout, exhaustion, struggling to do more, be more, missing things, and I said, "No, this is not what I want for my surroundings." Especially I'm in hospitality.
Right.
Everybody
It's a
works
hard
all
world.
the time, and no. So I'd say I ran from everything I saw to create what I wanted.
That's so interesting. And I guess there's a component of that for me as well, where my parents were divorced, and I told the story in the one of the first episodes, but my mom gave me so many amazing things to chase in qualities that I wanted to emulate, but she was never happy or fulfilled in her work.
Mhm.
And that I think was a driving force for me too. I used to watch her get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She was in uh, a grocery store chain here in Florida for 30 years. And she would come home exhausted
Mhm.
by, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then just fall asleep in the chair at night after she had carted me around. And so I think that I had a little bit of that as well, where I had my dad who was an entrepreneur, and I saw what that did for him. And then I saw my mom, and it was such a good example of I don't want to work in a W-2 setting
Mhm.
where somebody else is dictating what my day looks
Yeah.
like, because that was scary.
And I guess in that regard, I do have my parents to thank for that. First of all, I grew up in a Leave It to Beaver household. We were up in the morning. My dad had a three-piece suit, went out the door at
Oh.
like 8 a.m., came back at 5, changed into a different outfit. Mom had dinner on the table. We sat down, then had dinner, watched Walter Cronkite, and then read together afterwards. So that I had a very, traditional quote upbringing. But and my mom was a school teacher, but when I was younger, my dad encouraged her to open a little store that she would kind of go to when she wanted. My dad was an engineer for Bell Laboratories. My mom didn't need to
Okay.
work. But I got to see her do that. And again, she was the one who came home and carted me around. But my parents also instilled in me that I could do absolutely anything. There was nothing that was off limits to me. And so I credit that, although they thought I was nuts. Everyone in my family followed a very traditional route.
Yep.
My brother was a doctor, and my dad worked for the same company almost from the beginning of his career until retirement. So when I was like, I'm going to do this, they're all like, okay. And then when it started getting bigger, my brother was always like, look, anytime anyone has a business and then they try to make it grow, that's when it fails. So just don't do it. And I was like,
Just
yeah,
be
yeah,
happy
yeah. Okay.
where you're
But I
at.
think now that you say that, it was probably because my parents let me experiment and do absolutely anything I wanted to. And I never felt like I would fail. It never occurred to me that that could be possible.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And your mom got to be a little bit of an entrepreneur
Yes.
then with the store.
But it was more for fun. It's when I
Yeah.
think back at it, and it was fun, and she had a great time. But it was much more of a hobby than a career. But I have to expect that my mom, put a little bit of that. Hey, why don't you do something on your own kind of
Yeah.
thing?
I love that.
Yeah.
So when you were younger, I have a moment and things that I always think back to. What did success look like for you?
Hmm.
Above and beyond, obviously, the autonomy of time
Hmm.
and being the architect of your life,
Hmm.
was there that thing that you're like, man, when I am older and I have achieved this,
Hmm.
that is when I will know that I have made it?
I think, honestly, I'm always hungry. I don't know that I would say that there was any, I don't even know that I've crossed the finish line now. There's
Mm-hmm.
always something new to explore and new to do. I think definitely the fact that I support myself and my family and we take
Sure.
great vacations and I've paid for all of their education, the kids, and we're able to live a comfortable life without worrying about too much, but there's always something new to strive for.
So you feel, if I were to ask you today, you feel like the life that you're living
Mhm.
right now is you've achieved kind of the dream. Sure, there's always more to go
Yeah,
after, but the life you're living is your definition of success and you've arrived at it.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah.
Does it feel like you thought it would?
Does it feel like I thought it would? I don't know that I ever thought there was going to be this one finishing moment like woohoo, I've arrived. But it's nice, when you're an entrepreneur. Oh, and
Mhm.
not even an entrepreneur, because to me an entrepreneur jumps from business to business and kind of starts up and sells and goes, I'm a business owner.
Sure.
So there's always the insecurity of, you're only as good as your last client. What happens if someone leaves? What happens if all the bottom falls out from the whole thing? So, it's there is a level of comfort. I'm not terribly worried about being destitute at this point. It's not that same as in the beginning where like, oh my God, if I lose one client, I'm
Right.
done. But there's always that little twinge of, better enjoy this now before something else happens,
The other shoe drops or
Yes.
something
Uh-huh.
happens.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, for me, when I thought about what does wealth look like?
Mhm.
What has to happen for me? I had two very specific examples.
Mhm.
I just in my head knew that when I could have fresh flowers in my house every day, or all the time, I should say, and when I had a refrigerator in the garage that was stocked of extras and of drinks, that when my friends came over, my kids' friends came over, there was a garage refrigerator. To me, that meant that I had made it. And so now that I'm older, it's so bizarre how those things from 10-year-old me, I have carried on. And now I do. I have flowers in the house all
Yeah.
the time, and we have the refrigerator. And I never thought about why that was important to me until I became an entrepreneur and started thinking through like my journey with money and wealth and what that looked like. So I think that sometimes we can surprise ourselves, just like with what you just said about your parents kind of giving you the example of going after whatever you wanted
Mhm.
until you really stop to think, oh, maybe that had a huge impact on me
Yeah.
and I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to go back
Yeah.
and see how that story evolves. So go back to the very beginning.
Uh-huh.
Now, you and Scott have built something incredible. What would you tell the Susan that was starting out on this venture? Like,
Mhm.
if you could go back and give yourself one piece of really solid advice, what do you think it would be?
Give yourself credit and believe in yourself. I think are like I think they go hand in hand. Over the years, I've had people who tried to push me back, tried to make me feel bad about myself, and there were times when they were successful. And there were times that I made decisions based in fear rather than knowing, that I knew there was a better way. I trusted people who I shouldn't have. And deep down, I knew I shouldn't have.
Mhm.
And I think it's have faith in yourself and know that you know what you're doing and go forward with conviction.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's really important. So for anyone listening at home that has ever had those feelings of, can I do this? Imposter syndrome, for women especially, that is such a big deal. And I think it is the biggest barrier
Mhm.
for success, right? Whatever that definition of successful living looks like for you, you have to be confident in yourself and your abilities to kind of make that jump and
Yep.
just say, I'm going to do it
Mhm.
and I'm going to fail. I mean, I think
Oh,
everyone's
yeah.
heard Sarah Blakely say before that,
Yeah.
like, when her dad would sit at the dinner table with them, he'd say, how did you fail today?
Yeah.
And, it does feel so backward, but
Mhm.
the reality is you're either winning or learning.
Yeah.
And your own confidence and belief in your abilities, it has to be there, because that's the number one thing that's going to stop you.
Yep.
So I think that would be great advice.
Yep.
So believe in yourselves.
Absolutely.
You have everything you need to go out and do it. And if you don't, then find people that can be a mentor.
Yeah.
Do you have a mentor now? Do you have anybody that when you have a big decision to make, or that you see something that, as you're growing your business,
Mhm.
do you have anybody that you can turn to bounce ideas off of? And
Yeah.
what does that relationship look like?
First of all, we strive to have all of our employees be innovative. So we all, all 25 of us will bounce each other and come up with ideas. And some stuff is wild and crazy and some stuff is perfectly normal. But I'd say, the two key people, other than professionals that I hire, like my lawyer, like you, like that, I have Karen, who's our general manager, who she always calls herself the string to my balloon. She's the one who has to keep me in check. And anytime I come, because, to me, I'm the big picture, big dreamer. And she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, hold up. What are we doing to get there? And of course, Scott. And so while I don't have outside mentors, I feel like they are the two that keep my ideas grounded, keep me moving forward, help bolster me when I feel worried. So yeah, I'm lucky I have it right.
You have an
Right in my
internal-
company. It's internal. Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
And you know what's so funny? You talk about the balloon and the string. And I think if you ever look at any, obviously, husband and wife in business, there's always one. But I find so often with the business owners that I work with that are in a partnership, there has to be one.
Yeah.
And, one is not better than the other. It's truly,
I think you need both.
You do. You've got to have the big thinker
Yeah.
and the visionary,
Yeah.
and then have the person that is holding the string on the ground and saying, okay, how are we doing this? And you just launched this. How are you going to now? We don't have the capacity, or that see the vision and go after it. But it is so important that you have both parts to the equation.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's when you get burned out or your business fails, which is still a learning. But I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think if you had never done this and built this company? What do you think you would have done?
Oof. Well, my degree actually is in public relations with a minor in Japanese.
Really?
My initial intent, I wanted to move to New York City. I wanted to, be a PR director for a big like international firm or something. I studied in Paris as well. So when I was younger, I was fairly fluent in French. And these were all things that I thought I would put into practice. But life had other plans for me. And so I wound up doing events, which is an offshoot of PR. I don't do nearly as much writing as I thought I would. But yeah, that's what I thought I'd do.
Well, and I think you still have found a way, which again goes back to building your version of this success. I feel like you and Scott love travel. You are gurus with points and all the things. If I ever have a point question on how do I turn these Amex points into a first class ticket somewhere, Susan and Scott are my people. But I think it's really interesting because you've got three arms of your empire, if you will. And one of them is tied to planning events that are destinations, right? So You guys, obviously, learning Japanese and having a love of culture in other places,
Mhm.
you have found a way to kind of tie that into things. And you guys do travel a
A
lot,
lot. Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
And is that where's like the place? Where are there places that are on your bucket list right now?
You know, I am so lucky. I think I've been to just about everywhere that's on my bucket list. We're kind of taking the rounds again. So my one thing I really want to get back to, I really want to go to the Christmas markets in Europe. I haven't done that since really almost just at college, but it's such a rough time of year because it's so busy for
For
us.
you
That may
guys.
be like a retirement bucket list thing. But gosh, I've traveled the world. I think there are very few places that I am desperate to go see that I haven't seen, but the biggest thing for me is I get to enjoy it with my family because we still, even though my kids are pretty much grown except for Macy, we all go together. And so
Oh,
to
that's so
me,
awesome.
wherever we land is just
An
amazing.
adventure.
Yes, an adventure for sure.
So, if you could give the listeners one piece of financial advice,
Mm,
what do you think is the most important thing when you're thinking through what your journey with money has been,
mhm,
or even what you're in now in the
mhm,
thick of everything?
mhm.
What do you think is the most important lesson for women to think through around money?
Yeah. I wish I had started planning my money a lot
Mhm.
sooner. I really kind of just flew by the seat of my pants really till you and I met. And I guess what is that like only 2 years.
It's
It's
wild.
I know. But there's stuff that I get to do for Macy that I didn't get to do for my older kids because
Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea it existed. And my brother was a very savvy financial planner and he kept saying, "Read this book, read that book." And I'm just not that's not where my head is.
Well,
It
and you're
sounds
not slowing
like
down to read a book.
no.
You're running 3 businesses
Yeah,
and
and
raising 4
but
kids.
everything financial sounds like gobbledygook, and
Mhm.
I it's not that I couldn't learn it, I just don't want to learn it as much as I need to do the wonderful things that you've been able to help me do. So,
Oh,
so
good.
I'd say if you are not money-minded, as soon as you're able, find someone you can really trust
Mhm.
and work with them. But plan, I mean, had I started, significantly earlier, I'd be in a different financial situation than I am now.
Well, it's so wild too. I can't tell you in the consulting arm of my world where I sit down with women all the time that will say, I know I should have started earlier,
Mhm.
but I didn't think I was at the place where I was ready."
Mhm.
And the reality is, even when you're 20 years old, I
Mhm.
mean, you should still have that person, that team
Yep.
that you can reach out to say, what do I need to be doing? Help me do this.
Yep.
And I think it's really important at the time to start kind of like investing,
Mhm.
right? Is even if it's a small amount in the very beginning, the time to start is today.
Yep.
The second best time is tomorrow.
Yep.
You just have to start. And I think that it's really interesting because you have been an amazing client as far as you're doing all of the right things. You are very mindful with your money.
Mhm.
So to hear even someone like you say that, it
Mhm.
just stays true to that, where we all feel like we should have started earlier than we
Mhm.
did,
Mhm.
which also goes back to the conversation of why aren't we talking about these things with our kids when
Oh,
they are younger? Because money mindset all comes from your youth and the baggage that you bring through.
yeah. And it's so interesting because my kids talk about it. My boys are 23, my oldest is 29, even Macy, who's 12. Um, it's a topic of conversation. I don't know if it's because they're exposed to it via social media, but they're like, I want to understand how to save my money, where it should be going. And that wasn't a topic of conversation in my family. My dad was the breadwinner. He took care of the investing and my brother was significantly older than I am. And so he came along, he's like, I'm putting money in a Roth IRA for you. I'm like, cool, thanks. And that was the extent of the conversation, except for him trying to pound through my thick skull that I should read and learn more about the investing. But it is a topic of conversation. And sometimes I look at the curriculum that my kids have had, and I think, why are we studying this when maybe we could
Isn't
be
it so
fitting this
true?
in? Because it's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It's intimidating, I think. I mean, it's important to learn.
It is. And I think we're in this age of social media and everything, all information is at our fingertips. We can go and find the answer to anything.
Good and bad information.
Good and bad.
Yes.
Because I can't tell you the clients will come to me and say, oh, my friend is doing this, or I heard about this on TikTok and I want to do it. And they have no business doing it, or they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, it's very good and bad. So again, although the information is out there as it's never been before, there is still that component of the human touch of having an accountability partner to kind of say, this is this is what you need to cherry pick and follow through on. The rest of it, leave behind. It's not right for you. And going back to having those said conversations with kids, very important. But also, why do you think that women, one of my favorite things to say is we are not having the same conversations that the guys are having on a golf course.
Yeah.
And it's not for lack of access all the time, but I think that we've all just been so programmed that we don't talk about money. We don't talk about religion or politics. And there has to be some kind of happy medium. And for me, I know sometimes I put my foot in my mouth because I'll be talking to somebody that I don't have a close relationship with, and they'll say, oh, I just sold my house and I had some profits. And I'm like, oh, what did you do with the money? How did you? And then I'll have to say, oh, I'm so sorry. But we shouldn't. Yeah. We should feel comfortable, especially as women, having conversations around money, because it's only going to help the people that you care about.
I'm hoping it's a generational thing. Like,
maybe.
I know I'm older than you are. So my generation, we definitely didn't discuss that. And I'm seeing, honestly, some of my contemporaries who have no plans for retirement, have no savings or very little savings, and it's just not anything they ever did. I feel like when I look at Larissa, my oldest, she's not afraid to talk about this stuff. I'm hoping that, millennials and beyond are feeling more free about it, but you are correct. It was just not something we ever discussed.
Well, and, there's the women that are just starting out where if they're having conversations about what they're making with their friends, you never know what kind of door that's going to open for your friend. Where, and I also said in one of the prior episodes, we talk about with our friends and with younger kids in our life, that kids or not, nieces, nephews, find what you're passionate about and go do it. But I don't know if that's the best advice, because I wanted to be a school teacher at one point, and I still love kids. But I also knew that the life I wanted, I would never achieve with that path. So I think it's important, if we're having the conversations about money, if we determine what we want the future to look like, what your future life, if your passion will get you there, then by all means go after that. But if what you're going to do every day is not in alignment with what you want your day-to-day to look like, are we setting them up for failure?
But I also think that I know plenty of people who have chased money and have had miserable lives.
You're right.
And so maybe there needs to be a happy medium conversation, or maybe that school teacher who invests wisely and is frugal in the beginning gets to live the life they want
to live
later on. Or, what are things on the side that they can do? I will tell you, with my kids, I very much talk with them about finding something that makes them happy.
Yes.
And the money will I truly believe the money will come. They have to work super hard, and sometimes maybe double time if they want to chase their passions. But I just know so many unhappy people.
No, you're right. And I think it goes back to just having the conversation.
Yeah.
Because if you're having conversations about money and treating it as a tool to the life you want, so not chasing it because of the material side, but kind of envisioning what life looks like and pointing out the pieces of the puzzle that may not be tied to money.
Yeah.
Right. And we've all heard money doesn't buy happiness. And I do agree with that. I think money.
Yeah. But having your basic needs met
sure makes life
gives
easy.
Yes. It makes life better if you're not in a constant struggle for how am I paying my bills? How am I paying
Absolutely.
rent? But I think it looks different. I think that people have different levels of satisfaction with what their
Sure.
day-to-day looks like. And, while some people need to have a Prada purse, some people are okay also with one that comes from Target. They
That's
both do the
right.
same thing.
Priorities.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Well, and I think that if you look at, again, being the architect of what the future looks like for
Mhm.
yourself. For example, we'll use working from home,
Yeah.
right? If that's something that is super important and being in charge of how you spend every day
Mhm.
and working, you may be answering emails at 11 o'clock at night,
Mhm.
but you were able to go to the dog park with your
Yep.
dog. If that's important to you,
Yep.
then you need to find careers that
Yes.
open that door. And I think that
Absolutely.
that's kind of where the conversation, it doesn't have to necessarily be about money,
Mhm.
but I think chasing what you're passionate about,
Mhm.
as long as it doesn't make you feel like you're not able to achieve the level of success you want,
Yeah.
it is super important. And I think, again, going back and having those conversations, not only about money, but what your friends are doing. How are they meeting people that are going to potentially open doors for them?
Yep.
Or how are they getting involved in the community to fill their cup in that different
Yep.
way? We just don't have those conversations
And
as
that's
much.
it's interesting that you bring that up because with my kids, what we do explain to them is Scott and I are only successful because of the people that we've met and the people that we've networked with and the people who we spend time with. And it's interesting because two of my kids are extremely introverted and the whole meeting thing is very, very difficult for
Really?
them. And that is, and that is something that we've really worked on because Scott and I would be nothing without the people who have helped us along the way and have given us opportunities and who have given us business. I mean, that's everything. No level of knowledge, no level of degree
Mm-mm.
will get you anything unless you're able to be with people. And it's interesting watching my two introverts that, really working hard on their skills to be able to talk with people and meet people and do things with them. And it makes a difference.
Yeah, it goes back to the world that we live in, I feel like, and we can call it your network of relationships.
Hmm.
But I think that there's a book by Gary Pink called To Sell is Human.
Hmm.
And, so, so many times there will be a negative connotation with being in quote unquote sales.
Hmm.
But if you really think about it, we're all selling
Hmm.
all the time. And that goes back to being comfortable with people.
Yep.
And I think that that is a skill that we all need to be talking about.
Well, and to me, we had a period of time in our business where we had a team that was really uncomfortable selling, and I think they really thought about it as I'm forcing someone to do something. Where in reality, I look at sales as we're showing a path to something,
Mm-hmm.
right? That they want. No one is forcing anyone to do anything, and in fact, particularly in our business, they're coming to us because they want information one way or another. We don't cold call. We're not out there doing things like that. So we are introducing them to something that they, clients can potentially take or leave, but it's explaining, it's educating,
Yep.
and it's giving them something that they want. And I think that's, that makes selling feel a little less salesy.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah. So what has you've obviously defined this wonderful version of success for yourself
Mhm.
and are living a life that you're so fulfilled in. What do you think your good money choices have allowed you to do in the current day? What are some of the things that are important to you?
Mhm.
Like, I know you guys travel a lot
Mhm.
and you use points a lot,
Mhm.
but for some people, maybe it's, you know what, when I travel, I want to stay in a nice hotel. And
Mhm.
that's one of those things that my hard work has allowed me to do.
Mhm.
What do you think is the thing when you think, how are the ways that you spoil yourself now because of your sound financial decisions that you've made?
Spoil myself now. I mean, it's definitely the travel. It's definitely now when I fly cross country, I don't take certain discount
Airlines.
airlines. um, I will upgrade to business class when possible if I'm flying very, very far. Not that I'm so bougie that I can't rocket and
No,
coach,
but
but
once you lay
it's
down in one of those seats, it is, you realize that
yeah.
this is it.
Um, I don't know if this is spoiling me, but being able to pay for my children's college education was important. Being able to give my employees opportunities. Um, I'm not a very big I think this came from my parents. I'm not a very big spoiler of myself. Every
Mhm.
once in a while, uh, you know, to me, a $400 purse is extremely expensive and ridiculous. But every once in a while, I will spoil myself and get something like that. Um, I'm not into big designers. I'm not. It's the travel. I like the experiences, and I like, again, spending time with my family and being able to take them along for it. So I think maybe that's what it is.
I love that. And so if
Yeah.
I asked you, if we said, you know, wealth to you
Mhm.
is, what is wealth to you?
Wealth to me, security,
Mhm.
um, opportunity to be able to do things. Yeah, and being able to give others opportunity, to being able to help. Um, and recently, I don't know, I've been on a kick of, extra tipping for people without having to worry about it. And in fact, the other day I was in a thrift shop because my daughters love going to thrift shops, and there was a woman there who wasn't able to pay for something that she wanted, and I just went in and I paid for it for her so she could have it. She needed it for work. And so little things like that. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
want to sound Pollyanna-ish, but it's
No,
like little things like that, not giving a thought about it. Those are
that's
things
it.
I enjoy doing.
I love that so much. And I try and do that with my kids so they can see that kind of behavior.
Mhm.
And we had the funniest thing happen in the grocery store not that long ago. There was a woman paying for her groceries, and I don't know, for whatever reason, and it wasn't a lot of groceries,
Mhm.
there was no reason for it. But I had this urge to just
Mhm.
say, oh, you know what? Let me buy your groceries.
Mhm.
And I tried, and she was offended.
Ooh.
It was a total surprise to me because
Mhm.
she said, "Oh, I don't need you to do that." And I said, and I'm with my kids, and I said, "No, really, I'm just trying to do something kind." I've tried to always tell them, and this has kind of been my mantra for life, leave everyone and everything better than you find them. So I said, I'm just trying to, be a good example and show them. I just was called to it and I wanted to try and help. And she goes, "Oh, no, it's okay." And she was a little offended.
Oh
And that's the
gosh.
first time that ever happened.
Yeah.
But I do think it's so important to model those behaviors
Mhm.
because they were modeled for me. And I think
Mhm.
that that's why the ability to be a person that can sprinkle pixie dust on things,
Yeah.
I think is so important and powerful,
Yeah.
especially in the kind of world we live in now.
Yeah.
Um, what is the one thing about money that you think that women are taught, or a belief that a lot of us have that you have found to be untrue or wish that we didn't?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I don't know. Maybe that there's a belief that you can't achieve the incredible. Having the courage to just be like, I'm going to try this. Let's see what happens. I still think um, there's a lot of emphasis on worrying about failure. I
Mhm.
fail at things all the time. And so not being like, I try to fail softly whenever I
Yeah.
can. I mean, I've had some biggies,
Yep.
but I try to, take calculated risks rather than just like, woo, whatever. But I think that people are afraid of looking embarrassed or silly,
Yeah.
and I just think there's no room for that because I think it's like you said, failure teaches you,
Yeah.
success may bring you money,
Mhm.
but failure teaches you things and if you pay attention to the lesson, you can, succeed later on. So,
Well, I love that you said that because there is such a confidence gap. There's a ton of information out there on this. Find resources to learn about it. Because again, going back to the belief in yourself, which I think is what's gotten you here,
yeah.
women are less likely to raise their hand
Mhm.
when they have a question. They're less likely to volunteer information because of the fear of what if it doesn't come out the right way?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's not all of the details to
Mm-hmm.
give a sound answer? And so they're scared. And
Yep.
I think that, again, the only way that we're going to do better as a collective
Mm-hmm.
is to encourage each other.
Yeah.
Throw your name in the hat when you're trying to move up the corporate ladder.
Yep.
Take the chance, ask for sponsorships,
Yep.
find an angel investor.
Yep.
The worst thing that can happen is no. And I know, in a sales background, we always used to say, my favorite answer is yes. My second favorite answer is no. Just ask the question.
Yeah.
Find the answer so that
Mhm.
you can win or fail and move on.
Yep.
I think is really important.
Yep. And just don't be afraid to look silly or to be embarrassed and it's funny, there are a few people in my career who I even know now who every time I'm in front of them, I feel like a moron. Like I feel like my mouth is full of marbles and I never say the right thing and everything I say is dumb and then I slink away. And then, one of them in particular I found out later has great admiration for me and really likes me, where if you had, it's
Oh my
the
God,
imposter syndrome
yeah.
thing. And if you had asked me, I would have said, oh my God, this person thinks I'm stupid. And every time I say something, I'm ridiculous. And so I don't know if that ever goes away. You really have to talk yourself out of it.
Do the boys ever feel like this? Do they ever feel? We've got to ask.
We got to ask.
The men
I
that
don't
we
know. I
know.
will tell you, one of my sons, I don't think so. He's so cool. He just he will do anything, say anything. He has always walked to his own beat. My other one, I think really feels the pain of people looking at him, paying attention to him, like he doesn't ever feel good enough. And that's a really hard thing to struggle with, to try and
to unlearn.
and to unlearn. And I don't know. And it's so funny because I feel like I gave my kids the same opportunities my parents gave me. I don't feel like it's ever something I conscientiously said, hey, make sure you don't make a fool of yourself, because that's not me at all. So
Yeah.
somewhere it's like an innate or his peers or something, but he really struggles with it.
Wow.
Mm.
Where is Susan and where is Just Events in 5 years?
Oh gosh. I'm willing to grow some more. I'll be interested to see. It's taking on more partnerships, finding new clients, doing more interesting events, giving my employees exciting opportunities. I think that, like I said, I'm always hungry. I'm anxious to see, how big and how far we can go. I think I have a ceiling. I don't, I have in particular in mind that how much I don't want to grow. How big I don't want it to be, because I still like the personal attention and the relationship that we have with our employees and our clients. So I like that feeling, but there's a little more room to get a little bigger.
But I love that you said that, because in the echo chamber of success, you feel safe enough to say and confident enough to say, I don't need to grow something that is 5,000 employees to feel successful.
Mm-mm.
This feels really good.
Yep.
I want to get a little bit further. But
Yep.
overall, I think that you're writing the chapter to this book that is perfect for you. And that is a huge win.
Yeah.
And what a success.
I mean, I can safely say I have everything I need. I can pretty much say I have everything I want. So, how much the only thing I can do is give more to my employees and allow them to grow and do bigger things. But the joy in my career has been the relationships that I built. And I don't want anything to take away from that. I don't want to be so big that we don't have that personal touch.
So we've talked all about the successes.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're kind of winding this conversation down, what do you think is the one time that you've made a money mistake that maybe someone that's listening would say, oh, I've done that. And if she can get beyond it and build something, then I can too.
Yeah. Earlier in my career, I had taken on a partner because I was afraid to take the risk and pay a person. So I decided to trade partnership for it. And it was not good. Different work ethic, different morals, different everything. And we had to part ways, and it was very scary. and it was very expensive. I wasn't sure about coming back from that, but I, kept pressing forward and was able to go through that. But that goes back into trusting yourself and
Yeah.
having the confidence that you can do it all by yourself. You don't need to take anyone on. Don't be afraid to take risks. And, but, for me, it's, try to stay in charge. Don't give things away.
Don't give it away
Don't
just
give
to
it
make yourself
away.
feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I
Be
love
uncomfortable.
that.
Be
Yeah.
okay with being uncomfortable.
What do you think is the one financial habit that has gotten you here?
Oof. I really try not to overspend. If we splurge somewhere, we will cut back on something else. I'm cautious with housing purchases because, travel is so important to me. I don't ever want all my money, going into a big, lavish, expensive house. Yeah, I'd say just being balanced in my spending. I'm not going to say that I don't spend anything because I don't think I am known for my frugal ways. My dad would not be happy with me if he were around today. But yeah, just having balance. You can't blow it out all the time, but you can have some fun.
Some fun. I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation. I hope that the listeners take away that truly success is what you want it to be.
Absolutely.
And getting the right people at your table
Mhm.
and helping you get there is not as hard as it seems.
Mhm.
Asking the right questions,
Mhm.
belief in yourself, and not giving up power
Yeah.
to make decisions because you're afraid of failing, I think are some of the biggest takeaways that I got from this.
And I think be careful of your measuring stick. Like if someone were to compare me to Jeff Bezos, I am not successful.
None of us are.
But not everybody needs to own Amazon, right?
That's
you can
right.
have a measure of success. Just make sure you're sure in what that is and be excited to get there.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share. Susan, if anybody wants to find you, where would they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Susan_Southerland. You can find my websites, justeventsgroup.com, justmary.com, and justrightdm.com.
Sounds great.
Yeah.